So thank you so much for joining us for this Museum Midday. My name is Erica Chang. I'm the program coordinator with the Ketchikan Museums, so I know we're not in that space. So thank you to all of you all who came out here and are great thanks to Southeast Alaska Historical Center for hosting us. This is our last Museum Midday of the season, and we're very excited to have our speakers here, our panel here. A few years ago, we had instead of being able to be back at food production here in Ketchikan. We called it Girl on the Rock. It was kind of great for us to look back at some of these past years and ask those questions of what does it look like now, what does food production look like now. So we have representatives from our Ketchikan Community Gardens, from the Ketchikan Agricultural Producers Association, and then there are a number of other nonprofits and groups that are already there that are doing this capacity work and really looking to what food production looks like here in Ketchikan. So I hope you guys can signal this to share a little bit more, but I will hand the microphone right down the line and you guys can introduce yourselves and who you're representing here today on the panel.
Thank you all for coming. Excuse me. My name is Marcette Ellis, and I'm with Ketchikan Community Gardens. Very happy to be here, especially for the culminating event of Museum Midday, and hope to learn from my co-panelists here today, and together we'll share some empowering knowledge and get you going and sharing the word about cultivating the future of agriculture in Ketchikan and everything related to it. Thanks. Good luck for that.
I'm Julie Lekua, and I'm with the Ketchikan Agricultural Producers Association. I am also a member of the Ketchikan Community Gardens, so I have a little bit of knowledge from there also. So this should be a really interesting panel discussion.
Hello, I'm a last minute addition. My name is Michelle Gadbois. I'm a proud member of the Ketchikan Garden Club and also a renewed member of the Ketchikan Community Garden Club. And I'm just going to talk about, just home gardens. And so glad to be part of the panel. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Martha Jacobson, and I'm one of the team members of the Ketchikan Garden Club. The Ketchikan Garden Club is a very long-standing club in Ketchikan. We're celebrating 85 years this summer of existence. And the club historically has been a bunch of old ladies who sat around and talked about their gardens and helped one another in their gardens. And the club in the last 2 years has flourished. We now have 107, not so old ladies anymore. I'm the granny of the bunch. And 107 members now who are really enthusiastic about growing flowers and vegetables in their yards.
Well, obviously, we've got a very balanced panel here, lots and lots of time and variety in Ketchikan. So I think they're pretty well suited to answer this question, which is, what are some of the biggest challenges you face when growing food in Ketchikan, and what are the strategies that have helped you kind of overcome that? So, again, whether that's from a community garden sense or the personal garden strategy.
Well, for me, I think the biggest challenge is weather. And it inhibits me from growing anything year-round. And over the years, since I moved here in the late 70s, I have noticed that more and more private residences are building greenhouses on their property. And this is a huge boost to production of not only flowers, but vegetables also, because you just can't make it work here year-round. So I think that is the weather is a major big deal here. The second thing I would think is the kinds of food that you select. You're not going to grow cantaloupes and pineapples and stuff like that here. Although I've seen this past 2 summers now, people who have had greenhouses have had remarkable stuff in their greenhouses that you would never ever think would grow here. So having the ability to grow things inside in a greenhouse really is making a difference, I think, in Ketchikan.
Thanks. The challenges also, I would say weather, just a lot of precipitation, a lot of rain to leach the nutrients out of the soil and trying to amend the soil every year or protect the soil. Slugs also are just like, ugh, so frustrating as gardeners here. I mean, a lot of slug hatred going on. So another thing is a short growing season, I think, and those are the challenges. But I will tell you to overcome them. I just told this to my mom this morning. I said, we have such obsessed, passionate, experienced, generous gardeners in this community. It's unbelievable. We have like the heroes of our gardeners in our community, and they're just so generous. And that's how we overcome. There is a huge network, and lots of generosity and camaraderie, and a lot of inviting young people or people who have large yards or nice yards that are, supported in, getting acquainted with their yard again, or growing again, or just starting a garden. So that is that's how we overcome. And like Martha said, the greenhouse is going up. It's just a huge boost. And another boost that's coming is the future of growing and the industry. So here we go. Next.
So a couple of things that we as a group have identified in Ketchikan is a lack of places to process food for value-added product. So it's been very hard to find a rentable commercial kitchen in Ketchikan for a shorter period of time than a month. So one of the things that the Ketchikan Agricultural Producers Association is working on is building a new processing facility out by Three Bears, which is not only for the processing of fish, but it will have commercial kitchens that will allow people to rent by the day or the weekend or the week. So, for example, like I'm a jam maker, so I could theoretically make all of my spruce tip jelly for the entire year in 2 days. And we will have the space to store product. That's another issue that we've had a problem with, is when you have a very large harvest, most people don't have enough freezer space or storage space of any sort to store that food to last through like a year or through the winter or whatever. Another struggle we've identified and that we're hoping to open first is an ice facility. So we have a lot of fish producers, independent, that don't have the facilities to get ice in order to preserve their catch. So this is pretty exciting for Ketchikan. It's a big deal. It could potentially move a lot of us cottage industry people, like myself. I have a cottage industry jam business. It could move some of us into the commercial space. However, as of January 1st of this year, the Alaska cottage industry food laws have changed drastically to the point where it would no longer be required to have to go to the commercial level to sell throughout the state. So it's now called the Alaska Homemade Foods Law, and there are provisions for being able to sell in a store now. There is instead of being capped sales-wise, it is unlimited. So these are some changes that are absolutely amazing. The labeling has somewhat changed. There are some other things, but for those that do want to go to the commercial level, having a commercial kitchen that is rentable, that has storage space and also has freezer space is a game changer, because that has been the cost prohibitive issue. I've even spoken many times to Governor Dunleavy about this. In Juneau and Anchorage and other cities, it's very easy to rent a commercial kitchen. It is not in Ketchikan. So that has been some of the hardships, along with the weather is definitely, and slugs are issues for the home gardener that's even trying to ramp up and produce enough just to feed their family. So all of these have been identified, and we're working on that. If anyone has input that they would like to give us regarding what is needed in the facility, please let me know afterwards, and I will take that to our board, because we are completely open to suggestions at this point.
In addition to everything that everyone has said so far, I have to add, made a little list here, access to soil, lack of compost in town, lack of land for further community gardens, lack of volunteers to step up and take leadership roles and mentor gardeners who want to learn. And along with the mentors, just general sharing of knowledge. There's a lot of successful gardeners out there that are busy gardening that we can learn from. Just need to empower them to find them first, and empower them to share in some way, shape, or form. I'm excited about the future and tackling a lot of what we've brought. I think there's hope. It's just going to take a lot of collaboration, a lot of support from city and borough leaders, and yeah, we'll just keep working in that direction.
Well, Marzette, we've learned a little bit about the garden club and Kappa. Can you talk about what is the community gardens for those that might not know?
Sure. Community Gardens we started in 2021, and it was Ramanda Simpson, who at the time was running Ketchikan Wellness Coalition, and CJ David Shocker and myself. And just serendipitously all came together in a matter of 2 gardens. Close to 100 beds came together in about 2 months. We got all the ducks lined up in January, and February and March we started building, and by May, as you can relate to spring fever, everyone was planting at that time. We have a memorandum of understanding with Clover Pass Community Church. They've been just a wonderful partner out north for our North Enders. We have about 70 beds there. And then in town, Tongass Federal Credit Union has been super generous with a spot next to the Commons, or between Tongass Towers and the Commons. And we have, goodness, probably 30 beds there. And all told, we have 60 to 70 individual gardeners who may have 1 or 2 beds. And we have 4 or 5 different types of beds. We have 12-inch tall beds, we have 24-inch tall beds. Those are 4 by 12 or 24 by 12 feet long, so basically 48 square feet. And then we also have climbing beds. We have berry pots out at Clover Pass. We've used old shrimp pots, commercial shrimp pots, and black cod pots that worked really well. And in town, due to lack of space, we're using standard nursery pots, and you'll find a lot of berry bushes and rhubarb in that. And we put on as many events, educational, as we can. We're starved for active volunteers. We have lots of active gardeners. They tend to be quite young and raising families and have very busy lives of their own. So it's kind of the old gray guard, and there's not many of us at all that take on, presentation or educational roles. But Ketchikan Wellness has been a great partner. We have a logistics coordinator there now who holds it all together, and in particular backs me up and CJ up, and we do have new leaders half my age that are taking ownership. So I'm excited. Yeah.
Well, I think this is a good question to kind of pass down the line here. If someone wanted to get started in small-scale food production, whether it's for their personal kitchen or if it's cottage or commercial, what advice would you give them on how to get started? Martha, you want to hit it?
Well, I don't know. What do you think? What would that look like in a community garden? Because most of it is for personal use. Although we also are wide open to, say, flower production. If somebody wanted to grow flowers and then sell flowers or vases. We do a lot of hide of potatoes. We've had cruise ships wanting to buy locally grown agricultural products. Hide of potatoes would be perfect, but they're in the season when the cruise ships start showing up. That's when we're planting our seeds. So that's not a natural crop. What would I say? I would encourage people to grow rhubarb. Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I believe the distillery in town and also the brewery have put out rhubarb flavored products. And they're desperate for plants. And so I'm looking forward to talking with them going further. Perhaps that we could partner with them, find some land together, and we could work collaboratively on growing rhubarb. I guess, and then mushrooms, that's a whole other thing. Yeah, so there's opportunities we haven't looked at that we need to look at.
So, I have a lot of info. So we are starting a series this summer of how to start a food business. So I currently am mentoring 4 people that are in food businesses of different levels. One is commercial. He's working on getting his poop in a group, as they say. And I've been working with, if you know the lady, Julianne Garlic, who has the cinnamon roll company. I've been mentoring Julianne from day one, and I have 2 other people that I am working with personally. But we are going to be having some classes this summer that will help people to figure out, and the biggest hurdles, I think, in starting a food business is it seems daunting. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't know what the regulations are. I don't know what's required of me legally. I don't know what the borough requires me to do, because it's different from municipality to municipality. So if you live in Anchorage and you're starting a food business, it's completely different than if you're in Ketchikan starting a food business. So we're going to be having classes all summer long. You can always call me. I will download to you every bit of information that I have, because nobody helped me. And I got in trouble because I didn't know. And thankfully, I come from a business background. My mom owned Share Magic for 40-some years. And I did have that part of it down, but there were some of the things that I did not know. Our whole idea is to eventually turn into a food hub where we would be able to help people market their product and get it into to the commercial level, to help people have value-added product that could be sold statewide. So that's what our goals are. And again, we are really interested in hearing what people need. I know for myself, I have tons of marketing experience, and I use mainly grassroots marketing. I have done exactly 0 advertising for my jam business, and I can't keep up with it. The only advertising I do is on my personal Facebook page, which then gets shared to Ketchikan Community Cycle. I don't have to do anything else. Ketchikan is super supportive. I know there are people here who could, if they had the facility to do commercial, you know, there's seasoning mixes. There is things like sea salt and seasoned salt and spruce tip salt, and there are so many different things, and these are the things that when people come to Ketchikan, they ask a lot. I get a lot of phone calls about, hey, I want to get some of your jam, but do you know anybody that does anything that's special to Southeast Alaska? Like, do you have a blueberry barbecue sauce? Or do you have anything made with spruce tip or devil's club or whatever? And so the Ketchikan agricultural food producer, we want to help facilitate and get people growing and thinking about it, because there are a lot of us still in Ketchikan, the gray guard. I'm 55 and I still remember what it was like growing up in Ketchikan in the 70s when the barge didn't come in. And if you didn't live here in the 70s and 80s and you don't remember when the barge didn't come in and you had to drink powdered milk on your cereal, it still creeps me out. It was horrible. But my family has always done subsistence. My family, to this day, we have multiple freezers at all of our houses, and my brothers hunt and fish, and I forage, and I grow. Speaking of rhubarb, I harvested 385 cups of rhubarb last year, and at that point, my freezer was full, and my brother's freezer was full, and I was begging people to come get rhubarb because it grows so well here. So there's a lot of potential for more things. I have often wondered why no one in town makes like a rhubarb ice cream or rhubarb sorbet, because that's a fairly simple thing to do, and yet no one does it. So there's so much opportunity. We want to hear from you guys, especially business owners or potential business owners. What do you need? But there are some things that we do have in the works that would be very helpful, such as the food hub, the processing facility, the ability to have freezer space and storage space. I think those are all really big things for Ketchikan.
Got the question. That was really informative, Julie. Thank you so much.
Just because we kind of think about here, and I'd love to have like the personal garden kind of perspective on this too, but can you all speak to food security and the importance of having access to a garden?
This morning I asked the ladies that I hike with, what do you grow in your garden? And the reply was carrots, cucumbers, tomatoes, lettuce, peas, peppers, cabbage, cauliflower, kale, things like that. If you're not growing that kind of stuff in your yard, why not? Why aren't you? You don't care about it maybe, you don't, it's too easy to go to the grocery store, you know. And this is what I think is the step where an ordinary homeowner like myself can really make a difference in the food quality that your family eats by growing stuff in your yard. It's not that tough. It really isn't that hard. I'm going to share something with you that I am absolutely sold on. I get these growing things. They're like mini little greenhouses. It has a roof. It has a basement. It has the bedrooms. And the platform that goes on the base. This is put out by Gardener Supply Company out of New Hampshire, I think it's Vermont, one of those places. The reason I'm so sold on this is because you can throw this thing in your dishwasher. Eureka. You put the floor on, the dirt goes in the bedrooms, the roof goes on the, excuse me, the mat goes under the bedrooms and tails down into the water, so it's completely waters itself. Oh, great, you don't have to fuss with it. And the roof goes on and you have the little greenhouse. And I'm not an astounding gardener. I have 100% seed germination with this outfit. 100%. If I grow a tray of tomatoes, they all sprout. I don't have one failure. So it's not that difficult. So there's no reason why you're not eating garden fresh carrots for your family, tomatoes till you're sick of them. You know, share them with your neighbors, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm just speaking from that. I don't have the kind of desire that Julie has here of a community, but also where we are one barge away from being very hungry.
Yes.
And I'm aware of that. So if the Garden Club of Ketchikan can increase by its knowledge, by sharing things back and forth. I'm looking right at Terry White, who's a Garden Club member. I've learned so much from her. And she probably has learned one or two things from me. Bridget Stearns back there is another Garden Club member. Just by talking, and oh, that's why my cabbage has worms. Next time I'm not going to do that. And this is the kind of food security that an individual in this town can do. And that spreads like wildfire through our community. And I'm really proud to be part of that garden club.
On the hands right back to so if we can all put ourselves back, years 2019, think back forward over the last 5 years of the work that you all have been doing. Let's look 5 years into the future. So you mentioned a few other groups, and others doing work here in the area, but let's envision this 5 years and forward in the future. What are you hoping to see, and what does that look like for us as far as introduction?
I'll just say one thing. The thing that I think would make the biggest deal for us individual gardeners is if we had some place in town that would compost your food waste. That would be remarkable.
I would absolutely agree with that because of our soil and the need for soil, because we live on a rock. And we do have seaweed, and we do have the forest, which we can get some good findings there, but definitely composting. I also see, this is my hope, is that gardening and finding where our food comes from gets to be in our education system, where kids in kindergarten, first, second grade are really learning about seeds, growing foods, soil, and that sort of thing. And I know that has started a couple of times, but it hasn't flourished. So that's what I hope for in the next 5 years also.
I really hope that in the next 5 years that we see a lot more Ketchikan produced food. And part of why I say that is that about 90 to 95% of our food in Ketchikan is imported. And that's a scary figure. So basically what isn't imported for food here is the berries that we pick, what little people grow in their gardens, and fish and seafood. There are a lot of opportunities for production of things in the seafood and seaweed markets that's coming up more and more, oysters that are being produced in the local area, things like that, which is all fantastic. I hope that we continue to grow the food hub, and our facility is able to help people get to the next level to where it's a little less scary. I know people joke about my family being ready for the next zombie apocalypse. Don't come to my house. But I do have a ridiculous, and we just moved, I have a ridiculous amount of stored food because I grew up when the barge did not come in. And I remember what that was like, where there would be 3 weeks with no fresh fruit or vegetables or milk. I vividly remember that. And I grew up on North Point Higgins Road long before it was paved and long before there was a school built at the end. And where the school is now was the old sawdust pits, and that's where the Yordazettes had horses. And they built trails all through, and there still are some of the old trails back up in there that connect with the old Coast Guard base property. So these are all things from my childhood that have deeply ingrained. I learned how to make jam with my mom when I was 6. And I became obsessed with it at 14 when Josephine Enright taught me how to make raspberry jam. And now I feed all of Ketchikan.
Yes, you do.
Which is a lot of fun. Jam is a really fun business, and I hope that other producers see that it really isn't that hard. And also just everybody, like Martha said, if you're not growing fruits and vegetables, why not? Because most of them can be grown in pots, which makes it pretty simple for Ketchikan. If you don't have a lot of space, I live in an apartment with no land, but there is a cement patio where I'm allowed to have pots. I also have a community garden bed, and I have garden space out at my mom's house. And quite frankly, if I didn't grow about, I don't know, 60 or 70% or forage for those products, I would not have my jam business. Because I literally either pick or grow or forage, and I have to do it on private property, not public lands. I would not have my jam business, and I would not be able to feed all of you. So there are a lot of things coming up. I think the food hub will really help. I think our facility will help with anybody who wants to go forward, and also the classes on just how to start a food business. As always, you are welcome to call me, text me, send up a flare, whatever you need, ask me 50 million questions. I'm willing to help anybody that I can, because I really hope that that is the future of Ketchikan. I'd like to see us grow more and have sustainable food sources where we're not so reliant on down south.
Wonderful, wonderful goals. My bucket list, shall we say, it's quite long. But number one, I want to see people growing anything. You know, if flowers are their thing to get started, just try. If carrots, lettuce, whatever, if it's a 1 gallon nursery pot, just try it. If it's half a milk jug that you've used to start your seeds, just try it. Because it's successes, well, we want people to fail, to make mistakes and to learn, because that's the only way, but we also want them to have an equal number of successes so that they have the confidence to go forward. My personal goal, and in discussions with other garden leaders that I work with, is a while back we met with planning and zoning and explored available land spaces for composting facilities and community garden locations. And sure enough, we come to find out that the only people that have property are schools or the city or the borough or the churches. And what came up as far as the possible composting site was across the street from the existing landfill is part of the expansion property for the landfall. That was goodness, maybe even 10 years ago, that was what was told to us. And it's a fairly flat area. I would sure like to see, because there really isn't property readily available to start a composting business, say like what Juneau has. Although Juneau Compost, if you're not familiar with it, they are on city property. And they are close to the city and borough of Juneau's landfill. I would like to see a similar sort of lease agreement across the street from the landfill, sort of a central depot location where a pilot program could be growing, where extra wood chips, because you definitely need that carbon, which is the greatest challenge here in Ketchikan almost. We produce infinite green material through our own private kitchens, restaurants, and grocery stores, but carbon is an issue, and that's going to come from tree chippers in particular, and commercial cardboard processing, shredding. And so what better place, not reinventing the wheel, but to work with an existing facility. So I would sure like to see that pursued, because once we have the soil component, we can grow as individual gardeners and then also as community gardeners. And it just becomes a whole increased awareness. Wow, look at what's possible. That is something that we'll be working towards. At present, we're working with North Point Higgins School with Carrie Allen in her 3rd grade class. They dug potatoes last fall. They'll be planting potatoes and carrots here over the next month and a half. Carrie and I need to get our heads together about that. With all the turmoil at the schools, it's a bit iffy, but she's gung-ho. We'd like to see, and are in discussions, having community gardens at each of the schools. It's a great partnership, because the kids garden all summer, all school year, and not to any great extent, but to an extent that community gardeners could then babysit those beds over the summer. That's the problem if you have an independent school community garden, is there's nobody there to sustain gardens. And so we would have our own gardeners take care of 2 to 3 beds. The kids would come back or stop in during the summer. They would come back and dig and enjoy from that point. That seems doable, but it's definitely on a volunteer basis. Teachers, they have hard enough time keeping up with their day-to-day stuff, let alone adding the garden component. That takes volunteers. Volunteers have to have the time to do it. But it's a momentum thing. People see stuff happening like the garden club. Basically, they've reinvented themselves. They're a dynamic group. We our creation. It's a movement. People are seeing us. If we're making the news, all news is good news, so to speak. Just like all mistakes made in the garden are good things. I'd like to see things like mushroom cultivation on Holt Mill property, as well along the Pipe Mill Trail. They do it a lot in Japan, where they have mushrooms going on vertical planks underneath. Their native Japanese, our hemlocks and spruce are perfect for that. A pretty turnkey operation to inoculate boards. Gardeners have done it, mushroom growers have done it in the past and sold here locally. I'd like to see commercial rhubarb growing, like I mentioned before. I'd like to see a rhubarb festival. We've got people talking about that. Raising awareness to the common dandelions. Let's do a dandy city festival. Just totally raising awareness at every point possible about how integral and nature by design our world is. Working with our local native tribes, learning how to harvest respectfully, identifying perennial vegetables. They're out there. As much as we can learn to subsist and survive, the better.
So definitely food for thought. Before you all joined us, we were discussing here at the front some of those organizations that weren't able to join us. So this is like my favorite part of the panel, where we do like the signal boosting, like shout out part of it. So what, you know, we mentioned a few different organizations and partnerships that you all have. Can you talk to some of those that have been valuable in your work and point us at those people we should be applauding and also supporting? So who should we be paying attention to?
Well, goodness, Outback agriculture for sure.
Ketchikan Evergreen.
And Ketchikan Evergreens. I know when speaking with Jen at Outback Agriculture, she experimented recently tomatoes, and that was a bust. They couldn't handle, at least the method that she tried at the time, the hydroponic techniques. There's discussion at Outback Agriculture, she said, about devoting one of their vans to mushroom cultivation, which might happen later this year. I don't know much about Ketchikan Evergreen's operation other than it's delectable, and I love seeing them deliver around town. And I'd like to really encourage people, somehow we've got to get people to eat brown bananas. And, you know, slightly discolored lettuce, or, you know, apples with spots. One of the most disturbing stories I've heard is in Metcalfe, there's a community garden, and they deliver what they grow to their senior services over there. The seniors wouldn't eat them because the carrots were crooked and the lettuce had blemishes. And this is, well, think of what we've all been spoiled by and what we buy at the grocery store. And what we don't see, it all gets shoved out the back door. Well, where that semi-marginal stuff goes, and believe me, I've seen it because I've seen what is delivered to Rendezvous on Wednesdays for people to pick up. 90% of it is edible produce. I haven't been yet to, is it Presbyterian Church that gets Safeway donations on Friday? I'm really curious about that for extra produce. There's just a whole secondary market of, what should we call it? Veggies with personality or something, you know? So there's just so much to think about, especially for our children and grandchildren. They're not going to have what we've had. You know, we've lived through epic times of genetically, of vegetables and variety. We really need to start talking about what real produce looks like and how to take care of it and how to grow it.
Piggybacking on that, one thing that immediately came to my mind is talking about baby carrots. Do y'all know what the story behind baby carrots is? It is the carrots that are blemished and don't look as pretty. And this farmer decided that, you know, about 60% of his crop was not pretty enough for the market. So he decided that he was going to send it through this machine and pare it down into little pieces. And he worked on it for a while, and all of a sudden, he got it down to where baby carrots were born. And now, I think it's like 60 or 70% of the carrots sold in the United States are baby carrots. The once blemished, unusable carrots. So it doesn't really matter what it looks like. And I will tell you that I use a lot of imperfect fruit and vegetables in my own business. It doesn't have to be beautiful to be made into jam. I mean, let's be honest, it just doesn't. Anything that's blemished or even bruised apples, I can cut around that and work around it. It doesn't matter to me. So a lot of times I do get phone calls from businesses or from Wolf Point Produce especially. She's like, hey, I've got some stuff that's a little bit soft. And I'm like, okay, I can process it today. And I can freeze it into portions for me to use later in my business. It really, honestly, if there's a will, there's a way. That's how I look at it. Another business, you mentioned about flowers, and we have to give a shout out to, is it Brita that has Dirt and Petal?
Oh, Britta.
Britta that has a Dirt and Petal. She's selling flowers and cultivating flowers in her greenhouse. There's a lot of food that is available to be made out of flowers. I mean, it really is shocking. I make jam and jelly out of spruce tips and dandelions and fireweed, and there's a lot of other lavender and violets, and there are so many things that could be used that are currently not being used. Also, just having the knowledge, as we've talked about, sharing the knowledge of what can be made, and then having the facility to do it in. These all could be major game changers. And even, I say this to people all the time, yes, I'm a gardener. I didn't really get into art gardening until my 40s with my mom, but it is amazing. There is nothing like going out and picking fresh lettuce and carrots and onions and radishes, which all grow really well here and easily, out of your garden and making a salad. It really is incredible. So if everyone, even in their home gardens, was able to produce a small amount and then learn how to preserve it for the future. There are some things that we grow in our garden, such as green beans and garlic and stuff like that, where there's simple preserving methods that then allow us to eat that year-round. And it's better for you than what you would buy in the store. And I'll give you a perfect example of that is like spaghetti sauce. The amount of sugar in commercial spaghetti sauce is shocking. Same with commercial salsa. So my family, my mom and I, make all the pasta sauce and salsa for our entire extended family. And when I say that, I mean like 10 to 12 cases at a time. So it's not that hard, and yet it's a lot healthier for all of us. So I hope that we start moving in that direction, and we do have Ketchikan Evergreens and Outpost Agriculture that are kind of pushing the envelope forward, and I'd like to see individuals also pushing that forward a little bit more.
I also Ketchikan Evergreens and Outpost. That's what comes to my mind. I love the evergreens. That is a huge treat for me. And a shout out to our experienced home gardeners. Like Bridget Stearns and Loanne Swanson and Martha Jacobson. And I mean, we just have so many experienced, generous gardeners who are, very knowledgeable, and they share their knowledge. So, and also to Marzette for really getting the community garden going, and how that quickly that came together. That was a lot of building and a lot of dirt, and it just took off. So shout out to all those. Here you go.
There are a lot of modest people in this town who are really great gardeners, who are very cognizant of their neighbors' needs and share their lettuce and garlic and everything with their neighbors. And it's always impressive to me that when there's an event at the library or wherever in town that is calling on gardeners to come and participate, Marzette Ellis is usually behind it. And to her, I think she is, to me, an inspiration. And if I've ever done anything that happens to make some sense in gardening, it's because I've taken my cue from her. So thank you, Marzette.
We're at the stage where we ask from audience questions. So do we have questions for you guys? We have one specifically for Martha there too, so I'll get out to her. question. What is your number one in the Oregon slug advice for people?
There's some kind of ice cream that's expensive, and it comes in it's not really ice cream, it comes in help me with this word, it comes in a plastic container with a screw lid.
Gelato?
Gelato, thank you. I buy gelato for that reason only, to kill slugs. I take a drill bit and I drill a hole in both sides of the plastic. And the reason I love this container so much is the screw top lid can be used over and over and over. Unlike a cottage cheese container, which I have found squishes down and becomes too much of a nuisance for me to attach it to the container. But gelato containers, I've had mine now for 3 years, the same gelato containers. And it's wonderful because anytime I want to indulge in something like that, I just run to the store and buy my favorite gelato, eat the whole thing, and drill a hole and stick it out in the yard for slugs. And my God, the slugs, they're just, why do we have such an abundance of slugs? Every day I'll go out and I'll pick 5 and 6 out of every container.
What do you put in the container?
Beer, thank
Yes.
you.
I was thinking, wait a minute, you forgot the most important part.
So typical of me.
And what kind of beer do you put in?
And I'll tell you what.
Guinness?
Skunky.
Behind that beer store behind Bella's. Because in that beer store behind Bella's, they have a container of beers that they've fallen open, you know, the six-pack has come undone, and they only charge 50 cents a can. So that's where I buy my slug beer.
It's skunky cheap
And
beer.
I drill holes that are like about halfway up the container. I fill it half full. I just kind of wiggle the container into the dirt a little bit. It doesn't have to be very far. And oh, voila, the slugs.
That's great.
Okay, you loud enough to need a mic.
Well, I was just wondering if the school kitchens are available to people in the summer.
No, they are not. So I have asked, they are not available. They are doing maintenance. The only one that is currently being used in my understanding, and I could be wrong, is Schoenbar. And it's used for the food program that they have in the summertime, so it is not available. In the past, before the pandemic, some of the fire stations and, for example, the American Legion had a kitchen that you could rent for varying amounts of time. But then when the pandemic hit, all of that closed down. And there were only a couple of kitchens in Ketchikan that could be rented. And none of them would rent for less than a month at a time. So for someone like me, that is way more than what I need. And it was cost prohibitive. Because I talked to one place that had a commercial kitchen, and they wanted $1,800 for 1 month's use of their commercial kitchen. For someone like me, that represents roughly 1/8 of what I make in a year, or 1/10, whatever. So it was completely cost prohibitive to me because I only needed it for a few days if I was going to use it to make some product. So it has been really difficult since the pandemic to find facilities, and that's part of why we got started on building this facility that not only had commercial kitchen space, but then also had freezer and cooler space and dry storage for small businesses that wanted to ramp up and possibly go to the next level of having a commercially based business, or even just coming in, and some people do not have the space, even in their home kitchens, to preserve their harvest just from their community garden beds or from friends that share with them, which I know all of us as being gardeners we're always trying to give away certain things because certain things grow very well here. So that's the answer to that question.
When is the community, the food preparation place expected to open?
So we're hoping to have the ice part of the facility open fairly quickly, possibly by this summer or towards the end of the year. And then the facility, we're hoping to have built and open by next summer, or next year. So we're hoping that by getting the word out now and getting people thinking along the lines of building a food business, and using all the knowledge of the people that are involved, that we can make things a lot easier, so that people then are able to ramp up a food business, no matter what level they want to start at. If they want to do a home food business, or they want to go to a commercial level. So that's what our hope is, to have the facility completely ready to roll in 2026.
I have a question for you.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Yes. Any discussion about a community root cellar?
Oh, yeah.
No, but that is an interesting idea that definitely could be discussed. So that's the first I've heard. At this time, I would say that there is no plan for that, but there could be. And that's part of why we're here today, is to find out what is needed. I know that cold storage facilities and freezer space and even dry storage has been mentioned extensively, but not root cellar. That's a great idea.
Can you, okay, so I don't see any other earnest people in the audience flicking hands up. If they've got questions after the fact and they've kind of ruminated and thought about things, how can people connect with organizations and become community garden volunteers, or have a plot, or get involved with Kappa, or join the garden club, or just get out there? So can you guys talk about where people can find you?
Goodness, Ketchikan Community Gardens, Facebook is popular for us, and then also it's easy to remember, we're gardens at KTN Gardens, or gardens at ketchikanwellness.org. Yeah. Or look for any of us in the gardens. We have our phone numbers posted at the gardens. Everybody is welcome to all of our events, to tour anytime they want. This year, I could especially encourage you to come to both gardens, because we're going to be hanging a lot of flower pots around the outside to attract more pollinators, and it'll be combined with other edible vegetables. So there should be inspiration there, as well as in our beds.
I think they mentioned we'll make sure to share the video. We'll edit it down and put on our YouTube channel. We'll make sure the link things here. But you're also welcome to take down information after this talk.
So you can always reach me. I'm on Facebook, Julie Slanaker Lekua. And if you can't spell my last name, it looks like Lekwawa. So it's Lekwauwa. So you can reach me. I will, I have my business card I can set up here. If anybody wants to take a picture, you can contact me that way. You can also contact Jen Brown, who is our executive director, and her email address is exec, E-X-E-C, D-I-R, exec director, basically, at ketchikanagriculture.org. And she can answer a lot of questions that I am not fully up on a couple of things. So, because I had to miss a meeting or two because of medical. So Jen could kind of give you a little bit more like specific timeline stuff, things like that. You are free to contact me, and I can get information funneled back to you. Also, Chelsea Goucher is another one of our board members, Jack Finnegan. All of us are pretty open to any questions that people would have.
And for the Ketchikan Garden Club, I'm going to hand it to Martha.
Right now I can see right here 3 members of the garden club, right here, 4 members. We are having our next meeting, April the 12th. Saturday. We usually have them on Saturdays, the middle Saturday of the month, usually. But they are announced on Facebook and social media. We have our meetings generally at Holy Name Basement Hall. It's a nice big room and accommodates us quite handily. And during the summer months, we also have tours that we give to all the garden members of people's yards. That's a very popular thing to do, and well attended. But normally the meetings are at the middle of the month, that Saturday, the second Saturday of every month, but it's always announced on social media, usually around, 10 o'clock. And we have a few business things to do, and we always have an educational component. So there's always something to learn. And there's a great group of members. They're fantastic. And I wanted to mention just one thing, just to show you how fantastic they are. We have recently just had an influx of 7 new members to Ketchikan, and they really don't know what they're doing. We said, let's have a mentor program. So I called 7 of the old timers up and said, would you help so-and-so? Every single one of them said yes. One of them said, Martha, what do you want? Before I even asked, the answer is yes. That just blows me away. So we have this great mentoring program in our garden club. So that's about basically what we're doing here for us.
All right. Martha and not she don't song. Martha, I think